She spat at me, saying, "Your presence alone makes our ceremony appear cheesy." As a high school dropout, I was invited to a friend's wedding who had achieved success. I was a little anxious because it was my first time attending such a formal, upscale affair. Additionally, I was being insulted by my friend's bride. "Could you break off your relationship with my husband, you ignorant scumbag?" "It's all right. You suggested that we sever our relationship. From now on, I'm cleaning my hands of whatever comes up." She probably had no idea who a guy like me, a middle school dropout, really was, as she could only judge individuals based on their education or job titles. I'm Rick, a modest pianist. There's not much to write about. I enjoy meeting different people and traveling the world, stopping at restaurants and jazz bars to play my heart out on the piano. I'd occasionally even play on street corners, earning a little money to help me get by each day. I'm not too keen on saying this, but I grew up in a relatively affluent household. The piano, now my bread and butter, was something I was forced into, starting lessons at the tender age of 3. In competitions mixed with adults, I was frequently awarded prizes, even being called a prodigy. Looking back now, it's pretty embarrassing. But that life crumbled when I was in elementary school. Dad's business tanked, and we had to move to a tiny apartment out in the sticks. Since it was communal housing, playing the piano at home was out of the question, both because of the noise and the rules. However, I just couldn't give it up, so I'd hit the school's music room every day after class to practice. One day, as I finished a piece, I unexpectedly heard applause. Looking toward the sound, I saw a boy standing there, moved, it seemed, almost to tears. Well, that was the Minute Waltz by Chopin, right? Yeah, that's right. Amazing, amazing. What else can you play? So, I played Schumann's Traumerei, and his eyes lit up even more. That's really awesome. How long have you been playing? Since I was 3. I started because I had to, but then I grew to love it. Do you play at home too? Nope. I live in an apartment, so I can't really play there. That's why I'm here every day. He simply nodded, saying, "I see." He seemed really impressed with my passion. I'm Tom. Can I come listen again tomorrow? I'm Rick. Sure thing. I play almost every day, so drop by if you're free. I shook hands with Tom firmly, and from that day on, my solo performances had an audience. As time went by, Tom and I got closer. Turns out his dad was some big shot at the Treasury, and he came from a well-off family. Do you play an instrument, Tom? Well, I mess around with the violin a bit. That's pretty cool. The violin seems tough. Yeah, it's hard. That's why I'm not really good at it. My mom keeps scolding me, asking why I can't play it. Tom looked down sadly, but his expression instantly brightened. I was really moved by your piano playing, Rick. He leaned in close, suddenly intense. I was genuinely touched that my piano moved him, but I never expected this much. Hey Tom, how about next time we play together? My piano and your violin. When I asked for a session, his face fell a bit. Not until my violin is good enough for your piano. Okay, all right then. Let's practice together for the next 3 years in middle school, okay? Tom seemed to hesitate with his words. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but a few days later, I learned what he meant directly from him. What? You're taking exams for a school far away. Yeah, so it looks like we won't be able to practice together. That's okay. I mean, you've got dreams too, right? Dreams? Actually, my dream just recently. Tom started to say something, but then stopped himself. Respecting his feelings, I didn't ask any further. Instead, I extended my pinky finger. Pinky swear, no matter how late it is, we've got to play together. You bet. Tom extended his pinky too, and we linked them, sealing our promise. I'll send you letters, Tom. I didn't have a cell phone and couldn't afford to waste money on home phone calls, so I decided to send letters, a relatively cheap way to keep in touch. Yeah, I'll be waiting. Our paths diverged, and I ended up going to the local public middle school in my hometown. I didn't join any clubs. Instead, I spent all my after-school hours playing the piano in the music room. I was determined not to fall behind Tom, who I was sure would level up in his absence. My passion for improving my performance burned strong. But while that was inside me, an incident during our 8th grade year, amidst the hot summer temperatures, chilled me to the bone. One day, my mom and I watched as my father, lying in a hospital bed, received an examination. He had collapsed at work, and after getting the call, I left school early to rush over. He barely responded to our calls, extremely weak. It was hard to tell if he had any strength left. He'll need to stay in the hospital for a while to be observed, the doctor said, and our anxiety only grew. To distract myself from worry, I threw myself even more into piano, desperately hammering away at the keys, mastering Mussorgsky's Asterisk Night on Bald Mountain Asterisk. The unsettling feel of the music matched the angst in my heart, and I was oddly drawn to it. I was particularly engrossed that day, forgetting I was in the school's music room, not even realizing a few classmates had come in and were listening to my solo performance. Wow, you're really good at the piano, Rick. The girls from my class were clapping, their applause echoing through the music room. I had intended to be alone, so I had exaggeratedly moved to the rhythm and made odd movements. Feeling embarrassed, I mumbled a curt, "Thank you." To me, it seemed like I was just trying to act cool, and my shame only grew. "Do you always play here, Rick?" "Almost every day," I replied. I wasn't exactly popular, not really fitting in with the class crowd. These moments of playing after school were the only times I felt some relief. "Well, that's awesome. Can I come listen again tomorrow?" Hearing those words, I was reminded of the first time I met Tom, realizing that meeting had also been because of the piano. But then came a mocking voice. "What's this, the poor kid getting carried away?" My archenemy from class, Amelia, appeared with her friends. They taunted me daily for being poor. Every day, they'd join in, squawking and screaming, making a ruckus. Why on earth is someone like you even at this school? Having a has-been poor person around just brings down the whole vibe. Amelia jeered with a laugh. The girls who had just enjoyed my piano playing went silent. I wondered who was really bringing down the mood. I thought this, but didn't have the guts to say it out loud. "Sorry," was all I could muster. The relentless ridicule was too much, and I left the music room, wiping tears with the sleeve of my uniform. I ran all the way home to escape. Despite everything, I continued to play the piano every day. Amelia and her friends would always throw cold water on my efforts, but I couldn't give up the piano. With single-minded determination, no matter how much they interfered or what insults they hurled, I kept hammering at the keys. Yet, my piano playing had changed more than I was aware. Ha! I was out of breath from playing so intensely. Sweat was beginning to seep all over my body. "That was awesome today. Thanks." I couldn't take their words at face value. At some point, my reason for playing the piano shifted from love to a way to release the pressure of a cornered heart. It was a means of releasing the distortions of a mind compressed by a terrifying presence. In essence, it had become a form of escapism. I knew this wasn't good, but didn't know any other way to clear the horrible feeling inside me. "Here he goes again. Can't you read the room?" Amelia's taunts grew worse as my mood fell day after day, and eventually, I stopped going to school. I wanted to play the piano. The only place to play was at school, but going there meant facing a barrage of insults. Caught in this nightmarish triangle, I was hit by an even greater despair. Honey. My father had become cold, covered with a cloth. My mother was clinging to his right arm, crying, "Dad." Strangely, I didn't shed any tears. Instead, I felt an intense regret. The last time my dad had heard me play was when I was very young. I had never had the chance to show him how much better I'd gotten because I never participated in competitions. I just kept playing at school. I've improved a lot. I'm on a whole different level now. Despite all these thoughts, I never had the chance to show him, and that was incredibly frustrating. After my dad passed away, my mother and I moved in with her parents. Right after graduating from middle school, we headed to Germany. My grandfather, my mother's father, was half German and lived over there. My mother, a quarter German, was named Ellie. Hey there. Welcome back, Rick. I'm back, Grandpa. One night when I got home, I ran into my grandpa in the living room. He was watching TV while petting the dog. Did you go to that jazz club again today? Yep. Since coming here, I never enrolled in any educational institution. I just went from bar to bar around the neighborhood showcasing my piano skills. I used the tips I got and somehow managed not to rely on my grandparents. Time flew by, and self-proclaimed pianist Rick became a 30-something. Now, I'm back from Germany, settled down in the US. I kind of missed my hometown, so I rented a room in the same apartment I used to live in and started living alone. Even though I say I've settled, I jet set around the world whenever I have a spare moment. I meet all sorts of people, share perspectives, and get updated with every encounter. I feel like I'm evolving, which is incredibly fascinating. Even with my performances, which I'm pretty confident about, traveling the world makes me realize I still have a long way to go. When I played on a street piano in Italy, a lanky old man showed up out of nowhere and casually began to play Schubert. My jaw just dropped. In a French tavern, while I was playing Ravel's Judo, a girl who looked to be in her teens asked to play a duet with me. It would be a good experience for someone like me, who had always played solo. I readily agreed, but man, that girl was amazing. Instead of just following along, she actually led the way. Our first duet was a huge success, and the crowd went wild. That's how I continued to be tempered by the world, leveling up as a pianist. There have been plenty of challenges, but I really like the free life that could elevate me. This time, I went to Austria. After my trip, I returned to the country and somehow managed to get back to my apartment from the airport with my heavy luggage. Well, there's a pile up here. Looking at the mailbox, there was a massive amount of mail stuffed inside, including letters and whatnot. Since I had told the landlord I was going on an international trip, I figured there wouldn't be any need for extra worry. There was a time I forgot to inform him before heading abroad. The mail had piled up so much that the neighbors thought something might have happened and reported it to the police. When I got back, I got a talking to from the landlord. Safe and sound. Well then, what kind of news do we have here? After carrying the luggage to my room, I went through the mail. Most of it was utility bills or flyers from the local supermarket. Huh, what's this? There was one envelope that was particularly lavish and flashy, a wedding invitation. Someone's getting hitched. I looked at the back of the envelope for the sender's name, Tom and Amelia. I see Tom's the one tying the knot. I got a bit excited seeing the name of an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. We had talked about sending letters, but since the summer of our 9th grade, we had stopped sending them entirely. It's been over 10 years, but it seems he hasn't forgotten about me. I pulled out the invitation from the envelope. It was folded in half, and inside, there was a section to indicate whether I would attend or not. Of course, I'll be attending. I brought over a pen, circled will attend, and above it, I added delighted to. I wrote my address, name, and a congratulatory message. 11:00 p.m. I'll have to send it back and call tomorrow. Closing the folded invitation, there was a handwritten message from Tom and his bride. Tom has had strong penmanship since we were kids in elementary school, and it looks like that hasn't changed. Right below, in the distinctive upward slanting script, there was a similar message. I read both, chuckled to myself, and decided to call it a night. The jet lag was hitting me a bit, but the fatigue was easily overcome. On the day of the wedding, when I arrived at the venue, it turned out to be an extremely famous upscale hotel. This was my first time attending such a posh and formal ceremony, and I was a bit nervous. "Hey there, long time, no see, Rick." While I was looking for my seat, I heard a voice from behind. "Oh, Tom, congratulations on your wedding." "Thanks. I'm glad you could make it." It had been a good 15 years since we last saw each other. We didn't bother with formalities and simply celebrated our reunion with a firm handshake. Next to him stood the bride, who looked at me with a bit of surprise. "You became a bank president, Eddie. That's amazing." "Thank you. How about you? Weren't you in Germany for a while?" "Yeah, I left our local middle school and headed straight there. Ever since, I've just been living freely without pursuing further studies." "I see." As we were catching up, a voice called out for Tom from a little distance away. "Oops, excuse me." Tom looked over and gave a wave with his right hand, as if to say, "Catch you later." I didn't know who it was, but he took off at a jog to say hello to another acquaintance. Yet, for some reason, the bride stayed behind, still looking at me. "Rick? As in that Rick? The one who played the piano every day in the music room." "Oh, yeah, that's me." "Pa, you're a middle school dropout." That distinctive elongated inflection at the end of her sentences, the mocking choice of words, and then the name Amelia on the invitation. I had my suspicions. The bride, Amelia, turned out to be the same Amelia who used to bully me back in middle school. Who would have thought we'd meet again after more than a decade? "Just your presence makes our wedding cheap. Is that right? I'm sorry to have caused such a fuss." "Ha, you feel sorry. Well, it can't be helped that you were here today. But from here on out." At this moment, Amelia's face seemed somewhat more malevolent than the one I remembered. "You low-educated trash should cut ties with my husband. Got it." Even though I had grown up, I was naturally infuriated by her words suggesting I sever ties with Tom. I couldn't remain as calm as before and retorted a bit. "Tom has been my best buddy since elementary school. Do you really have the right to cut that bond?" "I do because I'm his wife." I struggled to understand her reasoning, and just then, Tom came back. "Sorry, Tom. I'm going to withdraw all my savings from the bank. I'll close that account too." "What? Why? This is some kind of joke, right?" Beside the astonished Tom, the bride was speechless. She didn't seem to comprehend what I was saying. "No, your bride told me to cut ties with a middle school dropout." "Huh. Camellia, what are you talking about?" Thrown off by Tom's question, she replied, "Having a fallen poor man around ruins the atmosphere. It'll affect your work too, won't it?" She continued screaming hysterically, not caring who was watching. "Hey, why did you even invite such a poor person to the wedding?" "Amelia, that's too much. Apologize to Rick." "No, I'm not wrong." "Sorry, it looks like I've caused a disturbance at your wedding." I turned my back on them and headed for the exit. "Rick, wait. Please, Rick." Tom grabbed my arm after I had walked a few meters. He was pleading for a chance to talk. I wasn't angry with Tom, so I decided to return, following his lead. "Sorry, Rick." "Lift your head up, Tom. I'm the one who should apologize. I got too emotional." Meanwhile, the bride stood with her arms crossed, facing away. "Amelia, listen to me," Tom said. "It's about how Rick and I met." Only then did she turn her gaze toward him. "It's a story from when I was still in elementary school." He began to recount the story from 15 years ago, as if it had happened just the other day. "My parents were bureaucrats in the Treasury Department, really strict. It wasn't just about studying. There were so many do's and don'ts. As a result, I never had much in common with the other kids in class. I had a hard time fitting in. I was coerced into playing the violin, like my experience with the piano. I hated those days. After school, I had to study and practice again under strict supervision. To escape, I started wandering aimlessly around the school for hours after school. This was around when both Tom and I were in the 6th grade. It was also the time when my dad's business failed, and we couldn't afford a piano at home anymore. The bride, who had been crossing her arms, was now listening intently to Tom's story. One of those days, as I passed the music room, I heard Puppy Waltz being played inside. It sounded like a performance far surpassing even our music teacher's level. When I entered the music room, I saw a grade schooler playing. I was blown away. Sure, it's a piece that's easy for kids, but it wasn't just skillful. It hit me in the heart. The performer was thoroughly enjoying playing the piano. The bride's eyes were a little red. That was the day I met you, Rick. Your playing mended my nearly broken heart. Tom had seen my playing as a comfort from the pressures of his parents. That's why he kept coming to the music room every day after that. You seemed to enjoy playing so much that I started enjoying the violin. Those days I used to hate were completely transformed. So he became positive about taking the middle school entrance exams and aced them. It was a little lonely to part ways after getting into middle school, but knowing that my playing had been the foundation for Tom made me proud and happy. I'd been complimented on my playing before, but I never thought I'd actually saved someone. After hearing Tom's story, Amelia was in tears. It turns out that the high school dropout she'd looked down upon was the one who had laid the foundation for her current husband. Whether she was feeling regret or gratitude, I couldn't tell. Amelia, you said it yourself, didn't you? During middle school, when you were going through a tough time, the sound of the piano comforted you. I was surprised by the story and looked at Amelia with wide eyes. Don't look at me, she blushed, seeming embarrassed. Maybe it was because we shared similar experiences that we got along so well. I traveled the world and seen many coincidences, but a serendipitous meeting like this was rare. Who knew I'd played Cupid without even realizing it? Rick, Tom said, looking a bit embarrassed. Right, he doesn't know yet. The thing is, Tom, yeah, I was surprised too when I came to the venue, but your wife, she's my middle school classmate. What? Tom was shocked. Faced with this astounding fact, all three of us could only laugh. After we had our fill of laughter, Amelia bowed her head to me, her hair, set for the wedding, drooping toward the ground. I'm sorry. I said some terrible things without knowing anything. Wait, Amelia. Tom looked impressed by her, but for me, it was an emergency. If a wedding guest made the bride bow, it could turn into an awkward rumor. Not just for that. I also want to apologize for middle school. After Rick stopped coming to school, I felt regret. I wanted to apologize so badly that I went to your house after graduation, but you had already moved out by then. All right, just lift your head up now. Amelia turned back to face me, her makeup ruined by tears. She seemed to need a touch-up before anyone else. Not to make excuses, but my family is pretty strict, you know. From what she told me, her family sounded tough too. The stress had been piling up, and she'd taken it out on me. Apparently, that nasty comment earlier was due to the values ingrained in her by her parents, who cared about nothing but educational pedigree. In fact, she had graduated from a prestigious university and was working at a top-tier company. So, I'm really sorry. Amelia bowed her head once more. Let's forget the past, just make my best buddy Tom happy, will ya? After their apologies, my anger dissipated so much that I almost forgot what I was mad about. Then the wedding planner came over. It was time. I apologized to Amelia in return and encouraged her to freshen up her makeup. And Tom, about that thing. I've got it under control, he said. Yeah, I'm counting on you. I gave my best friend a thumbs up and took my seat. The wedding proceeded smoothly, and soon it was time for the entertainment. After the bride's dress change, the relatives put on a splendid dance, and then it was my turn. I was led backstage to a dimly lit area where a piano awaited. Now for the next act, we have the groom's best friend and a genius pianist, Rick. After an over-the-top introduction, the spotlight was on me. The piece was Liszt's Liebestraum. I'd thought of playing it at someone's wedding someday, but never imagined my first performance would be at my best buddy, Tom's wedding. The nervousness was different from playing in competitions, jazz bars, or on the street. It felt like the first piece was over in an instant. After a brief pause, I placed my hands on the keys again. Simultaneously, Tom stood up. It was a plan only the planner and the two of us knew about. As everyone looked on in surprise, the groom took out a violin hidden under the table. We made eye contact to sync our timing and started the second piece, Elgar's Salute d'Amour. As I moved my fingers, memories of my travels flashed through my mind. Germany, England, Italy, France, Spain, Austria. The memories were too many to count. The duet with Tom was more wonderful than any in my memory. The sound was perfectly in sync, playing off each other's nuances. The joy and the violin melody were palpable. I felt warmth in my eyes as I played. The audience, including the bride, were all in tears. Oh, what a perfect performance, a promise of 15 years, the duet between pianist Rick and violinist Tom now a reality. As the last note and its resonance faded, applause filled the room. Once it died down, Tom took the mic. Rick and I have been best friends since elementary school. We both played instruments even back then, but I wasn't a match for the genius pianist Rick. I was asked to do a duet, but I thought I didn't measure up and put it off until now. I'm so glad that we could achieve that duet here today. The venue was enveloped in applause once again. The talk was supposed to end here, but Tom continued, "Let me introduce him. Rick, my best bud. As I mentioned earlier, this guy's a piano prodigy. He's got a YouTube channel where he posts his performances, and he's quite the big shot with over 1 million subscribers. Everyone, do yourselves a favor and check out his YouTube. As Tom explained, my YouTube channel, thankfully, has been viewed by many. I post one-off performances and clips of my international concerts to it. More lately, I've been dabbling in composing, with numerous commissions coming my way. Some of my works have even become worldwide hits. It's a bit crass to talk money, but there's about $700 million in the bank account at Tom's bank. Not that I live a life of luxury. I live quite comfortably. I plan to keep jet-setting around the world. Let's give him a big round of applause," Tom prompted, turning all the applause and eyes in the hall towards me. Without getting overly excited, I just gracefully bowed as a pianist would. Since around the summer before my junior year of high school, anonymous letters began to appear in my desk and locker. They were simple. "Watch out. The tough guys are targeting you. Be on your guard against shakedowns or worse." These were the BS written in distinctive rising handwriting. It was around that time that Amelia started showing up in the music room. There was something I always found odd. Although she bullied me daily, she never once interrupted my playing. She'd always wait until I'd finished a piece, shared the afterglow with the audience, and then she'd appear. It seemed like after enjoying the performance, she was quick to send me on my way home. If that's the case, then she could very well be the one behind the letters. Thinking back, the handwriting was identical to that on the wedding invitations. I tried contacting Amelia a few times to confirm, but she persistently played dumb. I figured it wasn't good to pry too much, so I kept it to myself and silently appreciated it. The wedding ended, and people started leaving. While the parents were exchanging goodbyes, I was approached by a bunch of bored kids. "That piano was awesome." "Hey, thanks. Play that song." Upon further inquiry, that one turned out to be the theme song of a certain demon-slaying movie. I played just the chorus, and they were thrilled. That kicked off a flurry of requests. Tunes from the movie, about a fake family, curiosities, and more. And it turned into quite the riot. Eventually, the buzz settled down, and the newlyweds approached me. "Rick, thanks so much for today." "Same to you." "Thanks, but hey, about that thing with the bank account closing, is it true?" Tom said that, and Amelia looked at me apologetically. "Nah, of course not. I was just being emotional. Sorry for spouting nonsense." "That's a relief," Tom said with a relieved smile. "Right about that money, though, yay. I'm planning to use that $700 million to create a music studio. Not a formal school, but a place to foster opportunities for engagement with music. I aim to provide support so that nobody has to give up on music because of financial constraints." When I opened up about my dream, 2 friends were on board. It seems they related to my take on music and were keen to help with setting up and running the place. Several days after the ceremony, I got a call from Tom. "Appreciate what you did the other day. Found out today that Amelia is expecting." That might have been why she was so off-kilter then. "Hope you can cut her some slack." As I was prepping for my next journey, I shot back a message. "Congrats, buddy. To think my best pal's going to be a dad is something. Don't fret about the other day. All is well." On another note, you've got to check out the video dropping today. That evening, my channel saw a new video titled, "For My Friends Go Live." It's a medley of dreams, love, and lives, greeting the same pieces I played at the wedding. It's also meant to keep the memory of that moment from fading. I considered posting a duet with Tom, but I've decided to keep that now mythic performance to myself. Diplomas and words alone cannot measure a person's actual essence. Despite only having completed middle school, I consider myself to be a successful individual in my own right. Amelia is no different. You would think she was quite the piece of work based on how she was with me in middle school. But in truth, despite her uncomfortable manner of expressing it, she has a great heart, as seen by her anonymous letters and her attempts to get me home safely before trouble came. By interacting with people from all over the world, I've learned to value the important things in life. Although some regions may not have the best educational systems, that does not imply that all residents are bad people. The secret lies further down. What you think and believe is what matters. Playing the piano is how I plan to express who I really am, and I hope that one day it will save someone's life.